Hey, 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 hey. Sweet. So here we are once again with another set of tips and tricks. This is part of the 360 rendering uh, clinic kind of series. Doing these longer form videos of live streams where we can show parts of the process to get your 360 renders top notch. And this week we're going to do color stuff, color theory, color science, color grading. Going to be using OCIO, and I'm going to be looking at export formats using things like EXRs to get your colors out of Unreal rendered as closely as possible to the viewport, and also not just as close to the viewport, but also giving you full 32-bit high dynamic range color so that you can have the best chance at getting the best color grade out of this stuff. Just gonna be right back 2 seconds. Sweet. So yeah, color grading, color science stuff. Um, where we're at with this, where can I start? Basically, the kind of most professional workflow that you want to take is that you want to render single still images out of Unreal Engine as EXRs, because EXRs have this full floating point color system, which uses millions of colors and any kind of color gamut that you might want to use. And what that means is when you kind of tweak the exposure, up the exposure and things, tweak the colors, you have the most information to work with. You have all this data. So things like these clouds and things like this might become really overexposed on your final render, but you can actually pull a lot of that back, pull a lot of this color information back, and it just gives you loads more to work with your color grading. So it's gonna be a fairly long form video. And we're gonna go through all of the steps for sort of installing OCIO, checking that your colors are outputting right and what formats to output in. But then there is a lot of this is based off of William Fulcher's work. He's got a really good tutorial on exactly this. Sort of, I guess if you search something like OCIO color output, OCIO movie render queue, Unreal Engine. Yeah, this one, Unreal to DaVinci Resolve workflow, ACES and sRGB. This is all the same stuff that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at all the same stuff. So this video is well worth checking out if you want to just like follow this along step by step. But I might be discussing some other kind of things that I've worked out along the way as well. So there'll be some extra tips in this one. This is all taking into account the fact that we're rendering in 360. Not much changes really because we're so nicely integrated into the movie render queue with our new movie render queue output. But yeah, I've just been testing in this hillside sample project. It's just a really nice example map where you can just get a good idea for a lot of different kind of scenes and lighting scenarios and things like that. It is a 70 odd gig, literally 70 gig project, but it's useful to just check out some awesome scenes. Starting with awesome content, then you know you're gonna get a nice render. So I think the first step could be just to show you the final outputted images actually, because we'll get to this point in the end. We'll get like color grading in DaVinci, but if I can just show you these differences, then you might see the reasoning behind what we're doing here. So you can see here that I've got kind of three outputs, and they've got three kind of different ways of working with color. This one's like really, really saturated. This one's a little bit closer to the viewport at this point, but it is a little washed out. And in this one, you can see the clouds and stuff. You lose quite a lot of detail. So this one is just a JPEG, and it does have a kind of tone curve applied to it, so it's working in kind of close enough to the right color space, but we don't have that full range of kind of changes that we can make to things like exposure. This one is an EXR, and you can see way more detail in the clouds, a bit more detail over here as well. Like a kind of closer color. It's kind of a truer color to what we want. And this is the closest match color space wise without doing any further tone curve stuff, just through getting the color science right. And then this one is like super oversaturated, and this is using the ACES workflow, OCIO ACES output, and all the right conversions have been done here, but it's still looking really, really saturated. But what is quite good with this is you do still get all that color data to then bring that saturation down to a level that's visibly kind of similar to your viewport or something. So there's still, what I've found with this workflow is there's still a bit of kind of figuring it out by eye with your kind of color grading skills, but by getting the color science right in the first place, we know that we've got the ability to do that, to tweak that stuff to the right place. So when I talk about this kind of color science stuff, what I'm talking about is these movie render queue outputs. So I'm just going to load up a config that I made before. And what this is just a EXR output. Just using this compression, there's a few options of compression. Some of them are smaller file sizes. I've got multi-layer, but I'm not actually using it. And then this is turned off. This is turned off. This is our 360 output. And this was going out in 6K. These were like my final tests. I was doing all my color tests in like 1920 by 1080 just because it would take ages to do all your color tests at such a high resolution. But then when I get a final one, I wanted to look at it, really close up. So I did like a 6K render. Nothing else really needs changing. I like using equirectangular because you can see some seams if there are any. I've done this with and without path tracer, but you can do either. And then just a little bit of anti-aliasing. Don't need much more than that to get a nice crisp image. And this is the color section. This is color output. This is the section we are mainly going to be looking at now. What you generally want to do is download one of these files and load this stuff up and give it the right color space conversions. And then you just go to output, you tell it where to write the file to. So this color output bit, what it's doing is it's using a kind of lookup table or like a color science kind of library provided by this company called OCIO, Open Color IO. What this is like a massive file that's got loads of lookup tables for different color spaces. So if you're going to go out to different monitors, some monitors work in different color spaces, some programs output stuff in different color spaces, and what this is doing is it's just doing a conversion so you can get your color science correct, so it's in the right color space. It's kind of like working with CMYK or RGB in Photoshop. You're just working with total different color gamuts. So there's certain colors that you can't get in one place and certain colors that you can get in other places. So by getting this color space conversion right on the Unreal output side, it means that we're in the right color gamut and we have the ability to dial in the colors to exactly what we want when we're color grading. So I'll show you how to load this up. Basically a file that you make, you go miscellaneous, I believe, open color IO configuration. This is just like a reference file kind of thing. And what this is doing is it's just pointing to a file that's local on your disk. So where you get that file, where you get that local file is you want to go to the OCIO GitHub. It's actually quite hard to find the exact right one that you need, so I'll show you exactly which one is useful for me. And this is actually also just the same one that's in the William Fulcher video. So that's how I'm going to find it now. OCIO DaVinci Unreal should come up. cool. So this one. And he's linked it here, this ACES 1.2 config, this GitHub. Go here, download this zip. Once that's downloaded, you'll have a, you're gonna let me see in there, no. Wait, if I just follow my file path from Unreal. What you're gonna see from that zip is something that looks like this. Look a bit like this. You'll have like an overarching ACES folder, and in that you've got this config.ocia file. That is the file that you want to point to from here. You want to find that, load that up. I think this might be all the individual LUTs here, but yeah, you can just load that. And then what you want to do is go desired color spaces. And this is kind of the confusing bit, but if you just follow these exact ones, then we know we're working in the same way. ACES is just like a workflow. It's like a color space workflow that's kind of industry standard for a lot of film stuff. But there is a load of others out there. So it's kind of these lookup tables. But yeah, you basically just want to just go in desired color spaces and make 2 array elements like that. And first one wants to be ACES, utility linear sRGB. And then this one wants to be ACES CG. And what this is doing is it's because Unreal works in linear. I think what we're doing is converting linear to sRGB, which is what your like monitor will usually see. And Unreal does do this. Excuse me. Unreal does do this on the back end for when you're looking at the image. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then yeah, ACES CG is what we're going to be outputting. So the final image that we output is going to be in ACES CG. And then in DaVinci, we can then do another conversion. It's kind of confusing. There's lots of converting going on, but essentially just follow this way if you want to do it this way. And there is also a simpler way to do it. So yeah, now that we've got that set up, this has got these conversions in here. And you can also look at, say you've got like a different output you want. There's a load here and stuff, but it's quite hard to just experiment with these. It's easy to just follow along. So yeah, this file is what we then want to load into here, just to load that in. And then we need to set the transform source to be this, and then the transform destination to be this. And that's everything you need to kind of work in this ACES workflow. When you output this and you render this, it's going to look something like this when it comes in. Or it might look totally different if you haven't set this up in DaVinci. What you want to set up in DaVinci is go edit, preferences, file, project settings, and then color management. So we can change the color space that we're working in here. So you can set this one to ACES CCT, ACES version 1.2. It's the same as the OCIO input that we made. And then ACES output transform is Rec 709. And this is just, you're working in this industry standard color space. So then once that's set, I could show you changing this back maybe. Say we were to change this to something else, it's going to totally change the color space of all of these images that we're working with. So that's this like subtle color science that we're talking about here, really. So is this one right? Rec 709. So now that we've done that, we know that DaVinci is working in a certain color space, but with the image that we just rendered out, what we need to do is actually convert it again. And we know what I did was just rename this one, so I know this is the ACES one that I'm working with. So this needs a conversion as well. So in this outliner here, you can go right click ACES input transform, color space conversion, change this to ACES CG. And what I can show you is just if I change this to sRGB, it's going to come in like this. And right off the bat, this does look really, really similar to the viewport. So you might be happy with that. This might be something that can work for you. But what I found actually was if we use this ACES CG, we start in this really vibrant kind of color space, you can actually kind of color grade it down to be, just like a subtle tone curve. Just some very, very subtle stuff. Yes, it's actually quite nice to work with all this vibrancy. And kind of tone it down a little bit. So I think it kind of depends how you want to work, but it's just really quite useful to know that when your colors are coming in, they're coming in like in the right kind of color space. Because if we had that LUT totally wrong, then it'd just be like so hard to work with this. So other examples of how you can output this stuff. So to go from move your render queue again. You can also not use this color space conversion, and you can disable this and then just press disable tone curve. And what this is doing is kind of similar to what you'll get with the disable tone curve checked, you will get an output that's kind of like this. And I have done a conversion on input for this one as well, just to sRGB linear. If I had no transform, it's coming in like, super vibrant again. So this set is kind of looking a bit more in the right color space. And you can see that if you kind of want to predict how this is going to come out and you want to see this in viewport, because this is like, it's really close, but it's a bit more vibrant. You can go to the post-process volume and it's got a tone curve, amount. So bringing this down, you can see that it kind of looks a bit more like raw camera footage. This is just the tone curve that's added on to kind of, it's sort of similar to if you were to add like these curves, these kind of curves, but I think it's doing it on a per texture kind of basis, using all of this texture information and stuff kind of before the fact of properly rendering it. With this, we're just doing it with pixels. With this, we're doing it with, all the data that's in the scene. But this is interesting. This is useful to see how it might look on output before we do any saturation or like post color grading. You can turn this tone curve off to really see exactly what the output's going to look like. So that's really useful. And then similar thing here, you got this disable tone curve. So that's easier than loading in all the OCIO stuff, but it might not be the exact color space that you want to be working in. Having said that, you can get a pretty good result by just doing this disable tone curve. This one that I dragged in here was using that. And, this is still an EXR, so it's still got like all the lovely color information. And it can take a lot of tweaking and still be working pretty nicely. But then what I also want to show you is this JPEG and just why this is different to EXR. So you could just use the disable tone curve and do it on a JPEG, and it will change the output color. It will come in a certain color space, and you can still do a conversion on this. This time I did it as a texture instead for this one. sRGB texture works better than sRGB linear. And then you can color grade this and stuff, but you can see we've not got the same kind of cloud data in those highly saturated areas. You'd lose stuff quicker. And that's because of the kind of floating point precision of the EXRs and how that works. So, even though you could get the right kind of rough color space out of with a JPEG, you're going to lose a lot of this data. So it's useful to have. So I hope that's useful. I hope that shows just how you need to set the project settings in DaVinci. You need to be outputting using the correct color space from Unreal. And ideally you want to use EXRs. And if you do that, then you can really nicely match the colors from the viewport to what your final output is looking like. You might quite often get these like quite disabled tone curve looking images out of Unreal. And that's a really good way to get something that's similar to exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, I hope this has been useful. Again, we're doing these every week, these rundowns on different tips and tricks surrounding 360 renders. I'm doing these usually on a Thursday, and then we have an awesome looking touch designer Unreal crossover kind of lesson tomorrow. So yeah, more tips in the future, and yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope it's helpful.